Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a hidden, literal underground battle that's happening right beneath the manicured lawns of North Shore, Chicago. You know, when you drive through these gorgeous historic neighborhoods, you see absolute tranquility, right? You see those massive century-old oaks, the gorgeous landscaping, and pristine estates. It's beautiful. But down beneath the surface, there is a fascinating, relentless, and honestly incredibly destructive biological siege taking place every single day. So stick around because we're going to uncover exactly how nature is systematically dismantling human infrastructure piece by piece right beneath our feet.
So what is actually destroying your plumbing? Think about it. When a pipe starts backing up or a drain slows to a crawl, our immediate assumption is usually, well, it's just normal wear and tear. We kind of just think of pipes breaking down strictly from age, usage, or maybe some dirt shifting around. But in a lot of these historic, established suburbs, the primary culprit isn't just mechanical failure. No way. The true threat is actually alive, and it is remarkably determined. It's this opportunistic force actively seeking out the vulnerabilities in your home's aging defenses, and it absolutely will not stop until it gets what it wants. Which brings us to Section 1, the silent underground threat.
To really grasp what's happening beneath the soil here, we've got to understand the biological mechanics of root intrusion. Basically, this is the process where tree roots actively seek out moisture and oxygen-rich gaps in aging infrastructure. Their ultimate goal? To penetrate the pipe and establish pathways right inside your plumbing systems. Now, these roots aren't just blindly bumping into your pipes by accident as they grow. They are literally engineered by nature to hunt for the exact resources trapped inside them. A sewer line naturally produces condensation, moisture, and escaping oxygen, which creates this little microenvironment that roots can sense from feet away. It's wild. They are highly calculated biological invaders targeting the tiny weaknesses in our human-made systems.
And the situation in these specific neighborhoods boils down to a very practical equation. It goes like this: mature trees plus persistent moisture plus aging lines. North Shore Chicago is famous for its majestic old-growth trees, right? And those come with incredibly extensive root systems. You take those massive biological networks, you place them in dense soils that inherently retain water, and then you run utility lines right through them. Lines that, in many cases, were put in the ground 50, 80, or even 100 years ago. When you combine those three elements, you have created the absolute perfect storm for a plumbing disaster. It's an environment literally tailor-made for an invasion. Moving on to Section 2, why roots attack pipes.
Okay, so we know the equation, but why are these roots so relentlessly drawn to your utility corridors in the first place? Well, it's all about persistent moisture. Everyday features of a beautiful suburban home actually act as a massive magnet for these invaders. For instance, North Shore suburbs sit on soils that hold onto water brilliantly, especially near older, deeply mulched landscape beds or right where your downspouts empty out. If you've got a slightly leaking sewer line or an active irrigation system constantly watering your garden, you are inadvertently creating a persistently damp underground oasis. Even a utility line that's just slowly losing its seal over decades provides an ongoing, reliable water source. And to a thirsty tree, that moisture gradient is an irresistible invitation, and those roots are going to start moving aggressively toward it.
The biological motive here is incredibly simple and, frankly, a little ruthless. Like the quote says, roots are drawn to that moisture, then take advantage of tiny openings to move deeper. It's literally raw survival of the fittest happening right under your driveway. Once they find that sweet spot of water and oxygen, they don't just take a quick sip and leave. Absolutely not. They aggressively exploit the tiniest openings to move fully inside the pipe. And once they're in, they proliferate, establishing this permanent, fibrous network that acts like a massive net, catching practically everything that flows down your drain.
Let's look at Section 3, cracks, shifts, and freezes.
So a crucial point here is understanding how your home's physical defenses are breached in the first place. How does a plant get inside a solid, buried pipe? Well, the answer lies in the specific materials beneath our feet. A lot of North Shore properties are essentially aging fortresses. They rely on components installed generations ago. We're talking about vitrified clay, older concrete, and early composite materials. Now, roots don't usually just smash through a perfectly intact brand new pipe. They don't need a massive break to gain entry. Instead, they exploit hairline fractures, misaligned couplings, or joints that have slightly widened just due to the earth naturally settling over decades. They find the tiniest possible armor gap, and they systematically push their way right through.
And let me tell you, the brutal Chicago climate cycle acts as the absolute perfect accomplice, actively working against these aging pipes year-round. Think about the chronological story here. In the summer, you have massive, aggressive root growth surging toward those damp utility corridors.
Then winter hits, and as we all know, the region is notorious for its brutal, repeated freeze-thaw cycles. The ground freezes solid, expands, thaws, and then contracts. This incredible physical movement violently stresses those older, brittle clay and concrete pipes, pulling at the joints and shifting the dirt backfill. And by spring, as the ground radically heaves and settles, it separates the couplings and opens entirely new hairline cracks. Mother Nature is quite literally prying the door open so the roots can just walk right in.
That brings us to Section 4, spotting the warning signs.
Okay, let's get into the practical side of things. What does this invisible war actually look like inside your home? Well, it usually starts small, with symptoms that are incredibly easy to dismiss. You might notice slow drains across the house. Or imagine the sheer frustration of dealing with a recurring clog in the exact same bathroom, right? You plunge it over and over, only for it to back up again 3 weeks later. You might even experience bizarre backups just after a relatively light rain or shortly after your lawn sprinklers run. Or maybe you're lying in bed and you hear these strange, ominous gurgling sounds near your plumbing fixtures. Listen, these aren't just the charming quirks of living in an older house. These are the literal distress signals of a pipe being slowly choked out by a living organism.
But here is the truly frightening contrast and why this matters so much for homeowners. While obvious symptoms like slow drains and gurgling give you a much-needed warning to act, you can also experience what's known as silent growth. This is where a pipe can literally be 80 or 90% packed full of dense roots, yet the water still somehow manages to find a tiny, trickling path through whatever remaining space there is. In a lot of homes, absolutely no interior symptoms appear. None. Everything seems perfectly fine until one day the final gap closes and a sudden, massive, catastrophic backup floods the basement. The invasion happens entirely in secret, allowing the roots to grow incredibly strong until the whole system just completely fails.
Let's pivot to Section 5, how to fight back.
Because root intrusion can absolutely devastate both your sanitary sewer and your stormwater pathways, guessing your way through a fix is just a terrible strategy. Guessing means dumping harsh chemicals down the drain or renting a snake to blindly poke at the problem, which honestly only buys you a few weeks of relief before the roots just grow right back. The ultimate weapon against this threat: a professional camera inspection. This is the only reliable way to fundamentally change your strategy. By running a specialized high-definition camera down the line, technicians can pinpoint the exact entry points, assess the true structural integrity of the aging pipe walls, and allow you to vividly see the unseen battle happening in the dark. It's a total game changer.
To put you back in control, we've got an actionable 5-step defense strategy. Step 1, actively monitor for those frustrating recurring clogs in the same drains. Please don't just ignore them. Step 2, be strategic about your yard management. Avoid overwatering near your known drain or sewer routes to effectively starve the roots of that irresistible moisture magnet. Step 3, before you plant a new sapling or redesign your landscaping, confirm exactly where your underground lines are located. Step 4, if you've had persistent plumbing issues or recent ground disturbances, immediately schedule that professional camera inspection. And finally, Step 5, once you know what's happening down there, discuss long-term structural repair options, like relining or completely replacing the pipe, rather than just repeatedly paying a plumber to temporarily chop away roots that are guaranteed to return anyway.
So, at the end of the day, the most important question remains: what is growing in your pipes right now? Think about it. That beautiful 80-year-old oak tree in your front yard might be secretly tapping directly into your home's vital infrastructure as we speak. If you live in an area defined by established, historic landscaping and aging utility lines, it is absolutely a question worth investigating before the silent invader makes itself known the hard way. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember, always keep questioning what's happening right beneath your feet.